What's up, Transformers fans? Mondo, the Dad Bottomist Prime himself here, and welcome to week 43 of Moonbase 84's year-long celebration, celebrating 40 years of Grimlock and the Dinobots. Now, some of you may be looking at this tank type thing and saying, what the hell is he talking about? That's not a Dinobot, and you'd be right. This is actually the Grimlock from the Transformers Titanium series, released in 2008, which was based on the War Within comic. I've only had this Grimlock for a couple of days. I actually picked him up brand new, and I wanted him because, one, I've never actually messed with or owned a titanium transformer, and two, it's a Grimlock. And then there's another reason we'll get to at the end of the video. So we'll get started by checking out Grimlock's alt mode. Why? Because he's already in the alt mode, so why not? And as you can see, he is a Cybertronian tank type vehicle and not a Dinobot, because the War Within comic series was one of those series that took place before the Dinobots became Dinobots. In this case, I think they were called Dinobots, but spelled D-Y-N-O Dinobots, if I remember correctly, as opposed to when the Fall of Cybertron comics came out and things like that, and they were the Lightning Strike Coalition. I think I got that right off the top of my head. But we'll take a closer look. What you have here is a pretty decent and cool looking Cybertronian tank for Grimlock. He's beefy in the front, and of course you get the grays and the little hits of red and the goldish color that we've come to associate with Grimlock. On the sides here you can see his sword that mounts on the side of the tread, and we'll take a closer look at that. Classic Grimlock Energo sword with some decent detail if it focuses. And then on the back here you have his gun, which can plug in there for weapon storage, but it can also swivel up and down. I like to keep it up like that as opposed to that. And that pegs in very securely, where it's kind of hard to get out. There. So we got that out. And we'll take a close-up look. Now, the thing I like about this alt mode and this Grimlock in general, because as you can see, you can probably already tell it's basically Grimlock lying down. I mean, there's his legs. Here's his the front of his chest. So it's Grimlock lying down and covering himself up with this. But really nice detail. You see, I like the panel work and things like that. Those hits of red here. You got the treads on the side, the treads here. Hit of like an orangish yellow in the treads. Now he does roll. There are some wheels here, but they don't move very well. So in theory he rolls, but he doesn't roll very well, I'll say. He's got the smokestacks here. Well, actually not smokestacks, they were actually weapon turrets. I misspoke. Looking, because to me this is like, this alt mode could have been a Cybertronian Optimus. Same deal, legs or the back and whatever. So I always associate that, style with smokestacks. But they can rotate very tightly, and you can have them, rotate forward for some attack action, like so. And there's like detents, so they stop at certain points. For display wise, I like to keep them like that, and that's kind of what the instructions tell you to do. Here's the front. It's funny how this is very G1 Grimlock Tyrannosaurus belly. I think it's funny how they incorporated that with the red lines. And you get, some grays, some darker grays, some silver, then the yellow, or goldish, orangish, and yellow hits in red, and Autobot symbol. So yeah, a decent Cybertronian alt mode. Very hollow up here. But the one thing I will say is I wish to transform him, you collapse his legs towards the front. I wish they would collapse more to tidy that up, and so it's not as long and gappy. I think it would have looked nicer if you could have got the legs to like here. So that's a big thing I wish. Also, you can see how rocky, because it's titanium, has a lot of die cast parts. And the thing is too, what makes me worried is that they're too heavy for the plastic bits in a way a lot of times, and they don't secure, and I do worry about breakage over time. Now, one good thing about that big hollow spot there is that you can actually put little Jeff Goldblum in there. He's a little too big, but you can get him in and To battle, little Jeff Goldblum goes. You can do that. But yeah, overall, an okay alt mode. I mean, it fits the part. It looks the part of the War Within comic. But like I said, I wish that it would have looked better if these collapsed so the treads met closer. Okay, so let's transform Grimlock up and take a look at his robot mode. I'm going to actually transform him on camera. I know I usually don't do that because I fumble. Just like I fumble words, I fumble with transformations, so I don't like to do it on camera because it'd be a waste of your time watching me fight with things and get the parts right. But this one is very, very simplistic, so we're going to go ahead and just transform it up. So like I mentioned, the legs. Also, I will say, when you yank those legs out, but putting them back in, like that one compresses in fine. This one, as you can see, I'm putting a lot of force on it. That worries me as well. But then you just, very, very basic, simple transformation. Just rotate those treads like that. Spread the feet. Like so. Make sure I get all on camera. That's another one reason I like transforming things up on camera, because I tend to lose the shot. So there you go. There's that part. You want to take this piece here, rotate those cannons. Oh, very, like I said, tight. Split that like so, and then you want to open those up more, and then you just peg that into the hole. Very Grimlock looking wings. Then you come around to the front, just collapse the chest. Another thing I don't like is this doesn't like lock in or anything. And then open up the back tread and get his arms out like that. And then get this arm out like so. And there you have Grimlock in robot mode. Now, as we take a closer look at Grimlock in his robot mode, I will say that there are things that I like and things I not so much. I don't like so much. Just standing there like that, he does have a presence. I mean, he's big and, you know, bulky, beefy looking like Grimlock should be, which is really cool, but there are some things. Number one, again, the die cast with the plastic sometimes I think will not hold up over time, and it just seems fragile. And well, he's not very shaky, but it sounds it, but he's not flopping everywhere. But I just worry about those parts, the plastic parts, holding up over time. We'll take a closer look. Got the Grimlock head sculpt, which is awesome. Very tiny for some reason, and that got me thinking, for some reason there are so many Grimlock figures that have tiny heads starting with G1, and I think that's weird. It's just a thing. We'll take a closer look. Of course, that was the front of the tank, so you get the orange, the yellows, the reds, and that Autobot symbol. We didn't really, there's nothing really in this mode that we didn't really, you know, see in his tank mode, but you do get the torso, I guess, but you saw that underneath. Some black detail, red crotch. But again, I really like the panel work and stuff on this guy. The vents here. And then there's the legs or the feet. Treads on the side. The back, very Grimlocky, like I said. This is like the front of the tank, the top front of the tank, which also is reminiscent of his Tyrannosaurus Rex belly. And the vents, why can't I get that right? The guns on the back of the wings are reminiscent of his T-Rex arms. So that's really cool. One thing I do not like is how they did the arms. They're big, you know, there's big gaps with the arms sunk into the treads. I'm not a fan of that. They do move, but we'll talk about that with articulation. But yeah, pretty decent, but there are some things I'm not a fan of with this design. Taking a look at articulation, it is limited in quite a few areas. We'll start with the head. It does swivel. You know, it could go all the way around if you want, but it doesn't look forward, back, or tilt or anything. The arms, very tight as well. Hear that? Those are clicks. These are just pegged straight in, so they just rotate. You can't, you know, do a T-pose or anything. So very limited there. And of course the arms being sunk so far into these treads, those are limited as well, but then go up and down. And then you get an elbow because of transformation that goes all the way, because they have to go in there to sink in. You do get wrist swivel, but no hinge or anything, but that's okay. That's fine in my book. You do get a waist, which I'm not a fan of either, because, like, again, very tight, and it just seems like it could break at any moment. It could be me just being worried, but it just, when you feel it, when you have him in hand, it does feel that way. His legs kick up that far, kick back that far. Now, you can rotate it here at the thigh, and I would hold it just like that, because if not, it rotates here, and that feels like it's gonna pop off. So I'm not really sure if you're really supposed to do it that way. So I hold it for the thigh, because they do, again, these legs are heavy on this plastic, and it feels like that's gonna just fall off. But he does have a knee bend, but only to there. And then his feet can clasp back in for transformation, and then you get a little toe action, but no tilt or anything like that. So yeah, very limited in articulation, even I would say for 2008. And of course he can hold his weapons, and then just plug into the ports for his fists, like so. And like so. So that's pretty cool. And he also comes with one other accessory, and that's just this display stand. Nice panel work, gray and darker gray. It says Grimlock with a big Autobot symbol. He doesn't plug onto it or anything, you just stand him on it, which I wish there was a way to plug him onto it so he'd be on there nice and secure. So that is my look at 2008's Transformers Titanium series War Within Grimlock. And to be honest with you, when I first opened him up a couple of days ago and was messing around with him, I didn't really like him at all. I was very disappointed. I've since come around a bit on him. Do I think he's an excellent figure? No, not at all. I do not think he's an excellent figure, but I've come to enjoy him a bit more. And then one of the main reasons for that is because I put him in the context of, to me, the easiest way to say it to me is that he would fit nicely in the original G1 toy line because of his limited articulation and very simple transformation in a lot of ways. So if you put him in that kind of group and how Transformers were made back then, very nice, you know, be a nice Grimlock. For modern standards, even, oh my God, 17 years ago, where's the time flown? No, 15 years ago. Or is it? No, 17 years ago, damn. Wow, time has flown by. Even by 2008 standards, he's got problems. Especially with the limited articulation. You can't really get a lot of poses out of him because, mostly because of the lack of being able to swing his arms up. And lack of ankle tilt is kind of a problem too, but I think he would have benefited. I know he would have benefited greatly from being able to swing those arms up. But like I said, I warmed up to him a little, I've warmed up to him. Not a great figure, but an okay figure. And another Grimlock for my collection. Now, I said that the reason I picked him up at the beginning of the video were for two reasons. I mentioned two reasons. One, never mess with a titanium figure, and two, he's a Grimlock. The third reason is because activate your alt mode. I thought my boy Grim was going to win in a landslide. Sadly, we know that didn't happen. We are getting a Shockwave, which is pretty cool. Not a fan of the whale alt mode per se. I wish we voted for something better, I guess. But I thought he was going to win, and what I was hoping for is in the win that we kind of get an updated kind of version of this. It didn't have to be War Within per se, but a non-Dinobot Grimlock is what I was hoping for. It would have been cool if we got an updated War Within type vehicle, or just an Earth mode Grimlock would have been awesome too. Maybe like a Earth tank. And I was planning on getting this for when that happened, so I could be like, look, cool, and then it would have been thematically relevant. But I went ahead and got him anyway because I needed him for my Grimlock collection. That was a lot of rambling, and I apologize. And tongue-tied, gibberish, but you know, that's how I am. That's how Mondo rolls here at Moonbase 84, and that's who I am as a person. So sorry, but not sorry. But yeah, I would only pick him up if you really wanted titanium figures. They're not known to be very good in general as a whole line, or if you're a big Grimlock fan like me, because honestly, that's why I picked him up overall, plus for the other things I mentioned. Okay, I've rambled too much, took too much of your time up. Comment to let me know what you think of this Grimlock from War Within Titanium series. And as always, and until next time, thanks for docking.